Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Miss Nurhan Tariq, the science teacher from Safa Azharian Institute. We will start with Unit 4, Concept 1, titled by Adapting to Survive. Adapting to Survive. Lesson 1. As we studied before, adaptation definition, it is the process that helps living organisms to survive in the environment in which they live. There are two types of adaptation. Number 1, structural adaptation, and number 2, behavioral adaptation. Start with structural adaptation. It is the adaptation that is related to the body structure of a living organism to help it survive. Example, thorns on the stem of some plants. Behavioral adaptation, it is the change in the behaviors or acts of a living organism help it to survive. Example on behavioral adaptation, the growth of some plants toward light, bird migration. But what's meaning of bird migration? Migration is considered a behavioral adaptation. Migration means a group of animals like birds move together from place to another seasonally, and often they return to the place from where they are started, and so their cycle of migration is repeated. Example of migratory birds, steep eagle. Reasons of bird migration. Why bird used to migrate from one place to another? Birds migrate to search for best conditions that help them reproduce and preserve their species, such as different food sources. Number 2, suitable habitats during different times of the year. Environmental and genetic influences on migratory birds. Migratory birds may face many challenges during their journey, such as extreme weather conditions, shortage of food and water, predators, limited resting sites due to habitat loss. So, migratory birds must have structural characteristics that help them to survive during their journey. Migratory birds in Egypt, such as falcons and eagles. Red Sea and Nile River are important stopovers for millions of migratory birds every year. The main factors that attract the flocks of migratory birds to Egypt: the moderate winter climate. Number 2, the area of Red Sea that contains different environments such as coastal environment, marine environment, mountain environment. But what do you know already about environmental and genetic factors influences? Basic needs. Living organisms need some basic needs to survive, such as food, habitat, and water. Influencing growth. Environmental factors and genetic factors affect the behavior, structure, and the growth of living organisms. But we must know examples of environmental factors, such as availability of water and availability of light. There are 3 examples. Affect the growth of plants as they make photosynthesis process. Number 2, affect the amount of plants on which some animals feed on. Number 3, affect the growth of trees and shrubs in an ecosystem. There are another environmental factors. Number 2, availability of water. Availability of water affects the growth of an animal during its life cycle. Number 2, size of habitat. Size of habitat affects the number of different species that live in one place. Now we will take an examples of genetic factors or hereditary traits. The body size of animal, number 1. Number 2, the length of plants. Number 3, the fur colors of animals. The body size of animals affects the growth of a kitten when its body size changes gradually until it becomes as its parents. Number 2, the length of plants affects the growth of plants like herbs, usually shorter than the long flowering plants in a forest. Number 3, the fur color of animals affects the shape of a young rabbit when it has brown spots on its fur like its parents. So we finished lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, titled by Characteristics of the Environment and Ways of Adaptation of Living Organisms. In previous years, you have studied that there are different kinds of environments, such as Arctic, desert, and tropical rainforest environments. Each environment has its specific climate. Different types of animals and plants with traits that help them to survive in their environment, such as number 1, location, the Antarctic region. Its adaptation, it has thick fur or thick fatty layer, and its skin is covered with dense feathers to keep its body warm. Number 2, location, along the coast of South Africa. Its adaptation, around each of its eyes it has a circle of skin that doesn't have any feathers, completely to help its body cool fast in hot weather. Now we will study some examples of animals and plants adaptations in different environments. We will start with animals. The first example of animals is Arctic fox. The Arctic fox, its habitat, Arctic environment. Its structural adaptation, it has thick fur or thick white fur. But what's the reason to have thick white fur? To warm its body, Number 2, poison dart frog. Its habitat, tropical rainforest environment. It has colorful poisonous skin. Its reason to hide from its enemies and protect itself from predators. Number 3, lizard. Its habitat is desert environment. Its adaptation, its body is covered with sandy colored scale to hide among the rocks in desert. B, plants. Plants in desert environment. Its location, Egypt, western desert. Examples on it, acacia tree, palms optonia, spiny shrubs, and grasses. Its adaptation, most of them are characterized by the following. Size, most of them are usually small and herbal. Roots, most of them have short, extended roots near the earth's surface to draw any available water. Its leaves, some of them have thick stem to store water. Some of them have thorns on their stems and branches to keep away herbivores, which means animals that eat plants. So now we will talk about abiotic factors and adaptation. A small ecosystem is a small area of land between buildings that contains grass, insects, and weeds. Large ecosystem is the Arctic, where caribou feeds on grasses, wolves hunt caribou, and other prey. Any ecosystem contains two things: biotic factors and abiotic factors. Biotic factors, they are living organisms in an ecosystem, such as human, animals, plants. Abiotic factors, they are non-living things in an ecosystem, such as sunlight, air, water, soil, temperature, and precipitation. From the previous explanation, we can conclude that ecosystem is an area that contains biotic factors, living organisms, and abiotic factors, non-living things, that interact with each other. Plants and animals live in the same ecosystem, depend on each other to live and reproduce. The effect of abiotic factors on the growth of living organisms. You have learned that light, air, and water are basic needs for plants to grow. Now, let's see how light, which is an abiotic factor, can affect the growth of plants. Plants respond to the amount of light and dark they receive daily. Some flowering plants may produce pear fruits when the days are longer than the nights in some environments. Light helps in the plant's growth. If light is too intense, it may damage the plant's parts and cause their drying or burning. The effect of abiotic factors on the adaptation of living organisms. Water and light are considered the most important factors for the adaptation of living organisms in their ecosystem. Living organisms make adaptation according to the availability or limitation of water and light. If living organisms can get water and light, they can survive. But if water and light are not available, living organisms can't survive and will die. Note: living organisms have structural characteristics to adapt to abiotic factors in different environments. Over time, these structural characteristics transfer from parents to offspring, so they will have the trait that helps them to survive in extreme environmental conditions. Limited resources in the desert. Deserts are the most extreme environment on the earth. Deserts may be hot area or cold area. All types of deserts have little rainfall. There are two types of deserts. Number one, hot deserts. They have little amount of groundwater far below the ground surface. Small pools of water are formed inside rocks during rains that falls for short periods of time on deserts. Some plants which live in these environments have long roots to get the deep groundwater. Other plants have short extended roots near the Earth's surface to catch the smallest drop of dew. Number two, cold deserts. Antarctica is a desert biome that its temperature are cold all the year, where the temperature in winter go below freezing or below 0 degrees Celsius. Its temperatures in the short summer reach a maximum of 21 degrees Celsius. Now we will talk about new factor, light as an environmental factor. In the previous activity you have learned that how light, which is an abiotic factor, can affect the growth of plants, where plants respond to the amount of light and dark received daily. The plant's growth is affected by the intensity of light can affect the plant's growth. The duration of light, which means the amount of time that a plant is exposed to light, affects the plant's growth. Some flowering plants may bear fruit when the days are longer than the nights in some environments, but there are more or some other flowering plants that can grow and produce flowers when the days are shorter than the nights, such as chrysanthemum plant. So we have finished lesson number 2, and we'll start in lesson number 3. All living organisms inherit traits which transfer from parents to their offspring. Example of inherit traits in humans such as eye color, nose, shape, etc. In animals such as fur color, fur length, and etc. In plants such as plants' length, shape of leaves. So these inherited traits affect the structure of living organisms and their life. Genetic factors control what traits get passed down or inherited from parents to offspring. Number 1, in animals. There are 2 examples. Prim cat, it has long silky hair with different colors. A Prim kitten inherits its long silky hair from its parents. Number 2, Sphinx cat. It doesn't have any hair or may have only very fine hair. A Sphinx kitten inherits its hairless body from its parents. Give reason for it. Although permanent Sphinx are cats, there is no Sphinx cat has long hair like permanent cat. The answer: because Sphinx cat doesn't have the genetic factor for long hair which is found in permanent cat. Plants in the desert. Inherited traits helps plants in desert adapted to survive in extreme conditions of desert, such as the very hot weather and very little rainfall. So, each generation of plants becomes stronger and able to adapt due to inherited traits which transfer from parent plants to their offspring. There are factors that influence human growth and behavior development. In previous activities, you have learned the environmental factors and genetic factors affect the behavior, structure, and the growth of living organisms. Now, we will study the factors that affect human growth and health behavior development. Number 1, lifestyle choices. Number 2, environmental factors. Number 3, genetic factors. Number Number one, lifestyle choices. Your lifestyle choices affect your health, where your lifestyle depends on your habits. Bad habits like smoking and eating a diet full of chips and soda will negatively affect and harm your health and your growth. Good habits like eating healthy food and doing exercise play an important role in your growth and develop your health and behaviors. Number two, environmental factors. Environmental factors that affect our health are outside factors which we might not have the ability to control. If your environment is healthy and clean, it will positively affect your health and your growth. Your health and growth will be negatively affected if there are some problems in your environment, such as health care is not available, water may be far away or unsafe to drink, difficulty obtaining food, sanitation service is not available that causes the spread of different diseases. Number three, genetic factors. Genetic factors affect your body structure as you can observe that your hair color or eye color are like your parents. Genetic factors control the transfer of inherited traits from parents to offspring. Genes carry inherited traits from parents to offspring, so genes are responsible for determining the body features, such as the way your ear loops hang, the length of your fingers, how tall you. Note, genes are tiny structures which found in the nucleus of cells of living organisms. So, genetic factors, environmental factors, and lifestyle choices affect human growth and behavior development. So, we have finished concept number 1 in Unit 4.